So, have you ever really looked at the skyline of Washington, D.C.? I mean, compared to most big American cities, it's just flat. It's wide, it's horizontal, it's a sight we're all familiar with, but it really makes you ask a simple question. Why?
I mean, just look at this. On one side of the river, you've got Arlington, Virginia, and it's packed with tall buildings, a really dense urban center. And then right across the water, there's D.C., and it's almost completely low-rise. It's this wild difference for two places that are literally neighbors.
So all of this really begs the question, what is going on here? Why can't the capital of the United States build up?
Now, you've probably heard the myth, right? It's the story everyone tells, that there's some kind of law that says nothing can be taller than the US Capitol or the Washington Monument. It's a great story, but yeah, it's totally false.
The real reason has nothing to do with respecting monuments or anything symbolic like that. It's actually way more down to earth, and it all goes back to a very practical problem from over 100 years ago.
The actual history here is just fascinating. And believe it or not, it all started because of a fire and one single, very controversial building.
So check this out. It all kicks off in 1894 when the Cairo Hotel is built. At 164 feet, it was basically a skyscraper for its time, and people freaked out. That public panic led directly to Congress passing the first Height of Buildings Act in 1899. And then in 1910, they made it official with the Modern Height Act, the very same law that shapes the city even today.
So, what does this law actually say? Well, it's surprisingly simple. Generally, a building can't be taller than the width of the street it's on, plus another 20 feet. For most of the big commercial streets, that maxes out at about 130 feet, which is roughly a 12-story building. And here's the kicker. The reason for all this? It wasn't about pretty views or historic preservation. It was about safety. The whole panic over the Cairo Hotel was because fire ladders back then simply couldn't reach the top floors of a building that tall. So this law that defines the entire city, it was basically a fire safety code that just never went away.
Okay, so this whole story about a century-old fire code might seem like a quirky little DC thing, but it's not. It's actually a perfect local example of a much bigger economic issue that you see all over the world.
You see, researchers look at cities just like Washington, and they see a pattern. Height restrictions like these exist in cities across the globe, and they have these huge, often invisible consequences for the economy.
There's this really important study called Cities Without Skylines. And what these economists did was figure out a way to measure the real impact of these laws. They came up with something they call building height gaps. It's basically the difference between how tall a city is today versus how tall it would be if it didn't have these strict rules.
And get this, the scale of this gap is just mind-blowing. The study estimated that all around the world, these kinds of regulations have prevented the equivalent of 6,000 Empire State Buildings from ever being built. I mean, just try to picture that. It's a staggering amount of missing space.
So, what are the consequences of having thousands of missing buildings? Well, that building gap in the sky creates a very real price gap for everybody living down on the ground. That Cities Without Skylines study found a really strong link between these height gaps and 4 huge problems. Way more expensive housing, a ton more urban sprawl, awful traffic, and even more air pollution. It makes sense, right? When a city can't grow up, it's forced to grow out, and that causes all sorts of issues. Let's start with housing, because the connection here is crystal clear. The data shows that countries with big building height gaps, so the ones with the strictest laws, consistently have higher housing prices. When you artificially choke off the supply of something, the price goes up. It's basic economics.
And okay, let's bring this all the way back to DC. Since the Height Act basically caps all new development downtown at 12 stories, the demand for that limited space is just insane. In fact, economists calculated that the rents for those top floor spaces are 63% higher than what it would actually cost to build and operate them. That's a huge markup, and it's a direct result of the supply just being squeezed.
And this squeeze, this artificial scarcity, it doesn't just hit your wallet. It fundamentally changes the entire shape of a city and how people have to live their lives in it.
I mean, think about it. If you can't build new homes and offices downtown, where does all that pressure go? It spills over. In DC, you see neighborhoods just outside the main core, like Noma and the Navy Yard, that have absolutely exploded with new construction. They're soaking up all the growth that downtown can't handle, forcing the city's center of gravity to shift.
And this right here is the final piece of the puzzle, the ultimate consequence of all that outward growth.
Because housing inside the district is so scarce and so expensive, people are forced to live farther and farther away and then commute in. This has turned DC into the #1 commuter city in the entire country. Its population swells by a massive 79% every single workday.
Which kind of leaves us with this big final question. We have a law that was created because of the limits of 19th century fire ladders, but is now contributing to 21st century problems like a housing crisis and traffic gridlock. As our cities keep growing and facing these challenges, it really makes you wonder, right? Maybe it's time we started looking to the sky to solve some of the most serious problems we're facing down here on the ground.